Hey friends, Ash here with Gents. I am a big collector of discontinued fragrances. I've got a whole mess of them and I keep adding them to the collection all the time. Unfortunately, I don't talk about them very much at all on this channel. Reason for that is every time I seem to do a video about discontinued fragrances, there's at least 1 or 2 or 5 people in the comments who will be like, man, why are you talking about these when I can't buy them very easily? I just imagine that's how they look. Really angry, pent up rage that I dare speak about a fragrance that's not readily available at FragranceNet or FragranceX. But I think I'm gonna start talking about them a little bit more going forward. Back in the day, I had this little series, I think I only did maybe 3 videos in it, Gone But Not Forgotten, and it was reviews of discontinued fragrances, and I think I'm gonna bring that back. Today though, we're doing a list. 10 different fragrances that have been discontinued that I wish they would bring back. You gotta do it. At least one of these, maybe. Let's jump into it. Like I said, guys, I'm a big collector of discontinued fragrances. I actually think that they're more interesting to wear than even niche fragrances. Because while niche fragrances, yes, are more luxurious, unless we're talking about a discontinued niche fragrance, but I digress. Yes, niche fragrances are a little more luxurious, but discontinued fragrances, I think, are a little more unique nowadays because nobody can get their hands on them. Unless you buy them from somebody who's trying to offload their bottle for a jacked up price or eBay. Let's go ahead and jump into this. First up, Christian LaCroix Tumult. I love the look of this bottle. I think it looks sick. Nothing else looks like this. It's very nice. I love that purple coloration. I love the design on it. Really nice. This fragrance, before it was discontinued, was pretty much a dollar bin or a clearance bin type of fragrance. Very inexpensive. Smells though, great. It gets compared sometimes to Comme des Garçons Kyoto, and they are in a similar style. This one is a very woodsy fragrance, and like I said before, the quality is actually much higher than you might expect, or at least you might have expected back in the day when you could actually find it. It has cedar, sandalwood, bay leaf, and juniper as some of the notes in the fragrance, and it has this sort of smokiness to it, which is where it's gonna draw that comparison to Kyoto, which is part of the incense collection from Comme des Garçons. This fragrance right here is pretty much everything you'd want in a men's woodsy fragrance, and unfortunately, discontinued. Next up, a fragrance that's more well known from more of you out there, Midnight in Paris from Van Cleef & Arpels. Another fragrance with an amazing bottle. Presentation on this is fantastic. And at one point in time, you could pick this up for under 20 bucks. And this is one that I do have backup bottles of. Back when it was announced that this was discontinued, a lot of people were like, nah, it's not discontinued. You can still find it at FragranceNet. You can still find it at FragranceX, and it's super cheap. It's not discontinued. And then it sold out, and then the price went. Thankfully, I heeded the warnings and I bought myself some backup bottles, so this isn't the only one that I own, thankfully. And that is a little bit of a lesson to be learned there. A lot of times with discontinuations, people at first will be like, no, it's not discontinued. You can still find it. It's still what, 25 bucks, 30 bucks? Well, who cares? And then when stock runs out, all of a sudden the price goes up at first to $60, and people will start to go, maybe it actually is discontinued. And then 75, 90, 100, 120, and then people go, oh man, why didn't I buy a bottle? Dang it. This one's got leather, tonka tea, and incense. Some people say it's a unisex fragrance, and I agree, women can pull this off. It does smell amazing though. It's balsamic, it's a little bit powdery, but in the best of ways. It's just really something special. There are some similarities to fragrances out there like Bulgari Black that you can still find a little bit easier. So that one is gonna get you close-ish to Midnight in Paris, but between the two, I go with this one all day, every day and night. Next up, a fragrance from the house of Calvin Klein, Crave. And this is a weird bottle, isn't it? Yes, it is. And it's not very good at actually standing up. This one weebles and wobbles and falls over all the time. It's a little bit strange. You press down right here to get it to spray. and it's not the best in the world. This is another fragrance that was once very inexpensive, obviously coming from Calvin Klein, and this is another one that I do have backup bottles of, yes. It's got bergamot, it has birch, basil, and depending on where you look, star fruit or starfish as one of the notes. I tend to think star fruit would be correct. I can't imagine that they were sitting down making a fragrance and they're like, you know what, man? I think people want to smell like ground up starfish. That will bring the ocean to you. It is a really nice beach fragrance though. It's very fresh, it's uplifting, it's bright, it's got an herbal touch to it and woods, and the dry down smells great. And some people out there might even draw a comparison to fragrances like a Millesime Imperial, something like that from Creed with Crave. Similar kind of feel, similar kind of vibe. Up next is the fragrance Bergamoto Merino from Gianfranco Fair. This is an eau de cologne. This was another fragrance that was really inexpensive, hence the large bottle here. You could buy a whole mess load of this and not break the bank. Of course, it is an eau de cologne, so it's not the strongest thing on earth, but it's actually surprisingly pretty solid in terms of the longevity, even with it being an eau de cologne. It has bergamot, jasmine, neroli, and oak moss as some of the notes in the fragrance, and this one, for the longest time, for a lot of people out there, was just a summer staple. Absolute summer staple. You could grab this, spray it on, and go and know that everyone was gonna like the way you smelled because it was very clean, very fresh. Some very faint similarities to fragrances like Mugler Cologne or Bright Neroli from Ferrari. I don't think it's close enough to really draw a comparison directly between the two, or between the three rather, but it's a fragrance you would wear in similar situations to those. Another one that's really unfortunate that they discontinued, because when you could pick this up for the price that you could pick it up for, this was fantastic. This next one I love it. It's got vetiver as one of the main notes. It's actually mainly vetiver fragrance done very well. Kenzo Air Intense. This is another one where I just love the bottle. That is different, obviously. It's just like, almost like one of those tiles that you would see in a restaurant, only with blue instead of being see-through. That's what it looks like. And then the atomizer is right here, built into the bottle, but this one actually works pretty well. There you go. This one has vetiver, anise, whitewoods, and bergamot. It is so nice smelling. I love this. I don't have Kenzo Air yet. This is obviously a flanker to that one, but I'm gonna be picking that up really soon. This one is a clean, woodsy vetiver. Yes, you would think that it would be maybe less woodsy because the name of the fragrance is Air. So you maybe would think of aldehydes or like fresh citrus that's really bright with some aquatic notes and things like that, but no. It's actually woodsy vetiver, white woods in the dry down, a little bit of citrus in the top, but mainly this very fresh vetiver that still retains a little bit of that dry woodsy feel. So while it is vetiver forward, you're not getting that Tom Ford gray vetiver type quite as much. You don't have as much of that sparkle. All of the woodsiness hasn't been scrubbed out of the vetiver here. And I love it. Man, that was supposed to go toward the camera. Next up, we got one from Giorgio Armani Attitude. Armani Attitude. This one, obviously, looks like a little Zippo. Got a lot of interesting bottles here. This one's got coffee, cardamom, lavender, and patchouli. And you know what? I want to spray this one on too. Actually, I just want to spray them all. Man, this is good stuff, man. As far as designer fragrances go, this is great, 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 great. It's got that coffee, which you didn't find in as many fragrances back when this was released as you do nowadays. Yeah, you had it in stuff like Amen, for example, from Mugler. But nowadays you find coffee all over the place, or coffee notes, whether it's roast coffee or tiramisu or whatever. Back when this came out, it was not quite as common. You've got lavender and patchouli in here, which give you some classic masculine notes. You've got cardamom, which gives you a nice little bit of sweet and spicy kick, along with that coffee, which is actually the focal point of this fragrance. And it is really good. Just as far as being a very wearable fall and wintertime compliment pulling kind of fragrance, with maybe a slight bit of an edge to it. Not too much. I know it's called Attitude and it looks like a Zippo, but this stuff is really not as boundary pushing in an animalistic kind of way as you might think. It's actually pretty smooth and sultry. A sultry fragrance, yeah, that's what it is. Up next, we've got one from Christian Dior, Aqua Fahrenheit. Now to be fair, they do have Fahrenheit cologne nowadays, but guess what? Fahrenheit cologne is basically a crappier version of Aqua Fahrenheit. So they discontinued this one and they were like, hey, we still need a summer, spring kind of daytime Fahrenheit. Let's do Fahrenheit cologne. And I do own Fahrenheit cologne. Now, I called it a crappy version of Aqua Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit cologne is not a terrible fragrance, but it's much worse than Aqua Fahrenheit, in my opinion. Grapefruit, violet, mint, and lavender, some of the notes in this fragrance. And this one really is what you would expect. Aqua Fahrenheit. They took the Fahrenheit DNA, they toned it down a little bit, made it more wearable for high heat situations. Now this does still have that violet from Fahrenheit, which is one of the main things that gives Fahrenheit that kind of petrol or gasoline smell in the opening. Get a little bit of that here, but not too terribly much. This is yet another fragrance that Dior discontinued and then replaced it with something that's worse than the thing they were discontinuing. Up next, we got one from Yves Saint Laurent. It is Frozen Cologne from the La Nuit de l'Homme line. It's got bergamot, geranium, tonka, and cashmere as some of the notes in the fragrance. Now I know what you may be thinking if you're not really familiar with this. Where's the cardamom? La Nuit de l'Homme, that's got cardamom, and that's what makes it a panty dropper. I hope I never do that again. That was probably really weird. That's okay, don't panic, random cardamom loving guy. This smells like it has cardamom in it. It does though smell much fresher, which you would expect from the name Frozen Cologne. And I actually find myself really enjoying fragrances like Frozen Cologne or Aqua Fahrenheit for that matter. Fragrances that yes, you can wear in spring or summer during the day when it's hot outside, but that have this richer, warmer backbone behind it, instead of being just that typical, citrus with musk type of fragrance. Now, not that there aren't really good fragrances like that. I'm just saying fragrances like this that have that little bit of oomph behind it, but are still wearable in high heat. Really like it. So a little bit like Aqua Fahrenheit, Cliff's Notes version of this fragrance, La Nuit de l'Homme made for higher heat situations. It does have a kind of cooling effect when you first spray it on, which is really nice, very intriguing. And as it dries down, it makes use of cashmere, which when this came out was not as prominent as it is nowadays. We've only got 2 fragrances to go, so I'm gonna try to hurry through these. Gucci Rush is the next one. This one is always lumped in with Gucci Envy and Gucci Pour Homme 1. All 3 of those fragrances, awesome. This one has cypress, sandalwood, cedar, and musk as some of the notes in the fragrance. It's another interesting bottle design. This is actually a sleeve. So you slide that out, and then here is your bottle, and I'll spray this one out too. It's another built-in atomizer. Pretty good though. Yes, this is another really, really nice woodsy fragrance. And what's very interesting about this is now it's highly sought after. People think of it as a masterpiece, just an amazing, amazing designer fragrance. And this is the same with a lot of these. If you go back in time to when this was released, there were actually a lot of people hating on it, saying, oh man, what a generic piece of crap fragrance. This is something that, yeah, the masses like, the sheep, the idiots, but people that are really into fragrance, they don't wear this. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, some things never change. So when this was released, a lot of people in the fragrance community at the time, I wasn't in the fragrance community at the time, I've just seen the posts saved forever on the internet, but a lot of people in the community were hating on it. Nowadays though, people will pay hundreds for this. Once again, a little bit like this one, if you're looking for just an extremely high quality woodsy fragrance, just woodsy top to bottom, that's very wearable, that smells very high quality. Check this out. Last fragrance for this video, Davidoff Good Life. This one's got fig leaf, tea, melon, and florals as some of the notes in the fragrance. And some of you out there only think of Davidoff as the house of cheapies and nothing else. You think, oh, Cool Water and Zeno, and that's about it. Or some of you just think Cool Water, period, and that's it. But some Davidoff releases are extremely sought after. This is one of them. As you can tell by looking at the coloration of the fragrance, a very green type of scent. This one puts me in the mood of like a Sunday morning, like a lazy Sunday morning, waking up maybe a little bit late as the sun rises in the spring and the birds are singing, flowers are blooming. That's this, Good Life. Unfortunately, nowadays this commands an extremely high premium based off what you could have picked it up for in the past before it got. Amazing fragrance though, absolutely perfect in casual situations, like I said, in the spring during the day. There we go, 10 fragrances I love that they need to bring back. Give me one of them. And with some of these, it's really a bummer to see what they're making now compared to what they used to make. It's just, it's not close. As I mentioned, guys, I have a ton of discontinued fragrances that I collect and have collected. So I'll do some more of these in the future. I'll do some reviews and some more lists like this. Just don't be mad that these are pretty expensive if you do want to pick them up. I mean, if you're really interested in them, I would say try to buy like a decant on eBay or something. You know, try to sample it before you jump in and blind buy a bottle. Let me know in the comments below, what is a discontinued fragrance that you miss? If there is one, let me know. What is it? Because I probably miss it too. All right, guys, it's gonna do it for me. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Thanks for your support. Stay safe out there. I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys.